I came to the United States in 1980, February 7th, 1980. And actually I came here to work for the Voice of America Turkish service as a broadcaster. I was working at the Turkish Radio and Television Corporation, and I took a test and I was interested in coming to the United States. At TRT, the Turkish Radio and Television Corporation, I met my husband, and he was a fellow reporter too. So we got married and came here, and then we had two children, a boy named Anil, who is an IT security engineer now, traveling the world as a travel blogger, and Deniz, my daughter, who is working for a government contractor. They are both good kids, and they have surpassed our expectations. They graduated from college, they found good jobs, and they have always been very close to us, so I'm happy about that. And it has been so many years since we came here, and I actually never regretted my decision. It was hard for my family, but I loved what I did. I still do my job, and I am very, very much interested in any volunteer work, which started with ATADC many years ago. Actually, I signed a one-year contract with the federal government, United States government, and it was extended another year, and we thought maybe we should go back. And because of some family reasons, I lost my mother, my husband lost his father. There were many people passing away that year, and then we decided that we should stay at least a couple more years. But then we had the kids, so it got harder to move back. And in that sense, I never regretted my decision because they got a good education. Of course, you know, they would have gotten a good education in Turkey too, because, you know, we are very education oriented and we would have pushed them. But it was like, you know, you come to a country, you work and you raise your kids, you have a decent life. And that makes sense to us. That's why we stayed. But actually, when you live abroad for many years, half of your mind and half of your heart is in your homeland, in your native country. So it has always been very difficult to forget about Turkey, and we never did. And we wanted our kids to know as much about Turkey as we did. And it's actually very hard to say that, you know, we don't miss Turkey, we don't miss our relatives, our friends there, because, you know, half of our hearts and minds are over there. There were not very many Turks at that time. There were only three Turkish-American associations, one being the Maryland American-Turkish associations, the other one Washington Turkish-American Women's Association actually, and ATADC. So most of the Turks here were professionals, doctors, engineers, like me, broadcaster, and they were very disciplined and hardworking people. Not that I'm not saying that the new generation here is not like that. They are even more motivated than us. But the mix of the community was mostly professionals and people who have been here for a long time. You know, they were here like from the 1950s and 60s, and they had made a living here for some many years. Actually, I did not have much time to think about it. When I came here, I met with a friend of my mother's, Tezcan Charlton, who happened to be the president of the Washington Turkish Women's Association. The moment she saw me, because I have an education background too, she said, oh, we are in the process of starting a Turkish school for kids, a Saturday or a Sunday school with Ata DC, and I want you to be involved in that. So right after, a couple of months later, I came here. I started going first I became a member of the Washington Women's Association, and then I started going to the meetings at Engin Holmstrom's house. Then she was the president of Ata DC. And there were very many volunteers there. So I jumped into it, you know. It was the beginning process of the Atatürk School. And I'm very happy that I was part of that. But it was amazing to see that Turks got together and were working on a really, really good project. So you know, when the Turkish school started a couple of years later, I both taught there, and I later on became the principal of the school too. And I took both of my kids to the school when they were school age. So they learned their Turkish there, I have to say that, more than the house. You know, we couldn't teach them Turkish because we were, you know, part speaking in English, and they were always using English as the main language at home. But when I took my son to the Turkish school, his first reaction, his name is Anıl, and Anıl was made fun of at school among his friends. They use different versions of the name, and his Spanish teacher suggested that we use a Spanish name for him so that the kids would not make fun of his name. And one day he came to the house crying, you know. He said, my teacher wants to change my name. And of course I was mad too. We went to the school together and talked to the teacher and told her that this kid has a Turkish background and he's, you know, he doesn't want his name to be changed to a Spanish name. So when I started taking him to the Turkish school, he saw many other Anıls there, you know, and his first reaction was, Anne, there are so many Anıls here, you know, I'm so happy. And we always laugh about it even now, because he didn't know anybody named with his name, and he felt very lonely actually, because there were no Turkish kids in his school, and the teachers, although they tried to pronounce it right, they were not very successful. So that was something we'll laugh about it even now. First of all, there were not very many activities because the organizations were smaller, and there were only 3 organizations. There were not very many activities. The school later on became one of the largest activities that all the 3 associations had, but we used to do Republic Day balls and picnics later on, and home parties were really popular at that time because, you know, most of the members were well-to-do families, and they wanted to invite, they wanted to hold fundraisers, and that's how the associations made money actually to spend for their activities. So it was then, but now it is much more vibrant, and they reach more people because of internet. You know, you put something online, you have a Facebook account, Twitter account, and it really gets to a lot of people, young and old. So the activities have gained more vibrancy, and also more importance because of the importance of Turkey, which has increased in the past 5–10 years. We dreaded that, let's say Republic Day ball. Okay. Board members got at least 10 to 20 telephone numbers of the members. And every night we would call them, and we would ask them to come to the Republic Day ball, or we would leave messages. And we would send not flyers, but some small cards to invite them. And some people got back to you, some people did not. So that was an ongoing process for a couple of months. Every night, every board member would call 10–20 people to convince them to come to the Republic Day ball. It was very time consuming, but now things are much easier. One of the largest and the most important events, in my opinion, was the teachers' workshop, in which we invited American teachers to come to a day-long seminar at the Turkish Embassy, and we had several at the World Bank too, but mainly it was held at the Turkish Embassy, and they would come to the embassy, and we would have speakers, we would have documentaries about Turkey, we would give them some information. We wanted to raise their interest in Turkey so that they can travel to Turkey. We even had gave a ticket to Turkey to one of the teachers. This was one of the main events which grew throughout the years, and it was started as for only high school teachers, but then we added the middle school and elementary school teachers. And at the end of the day, they would come to you and say, we did not know anything about Turkey, and we find this program very beneficial. And most of them traveled to Turkey and kept in touch with most of us. And the biggest challenge, in my opinion, was raising funds, because it was so hard to get even $10 from anybody at that time, and to please everybody. You cannot please anybody and everybody at the same time. So, you have to kind of balance things out, and that's what we did. We tried to reach out to a lot of people, but some were interested, some were not. And when it came to money, people were not easily convinced to donate. I am sure it's getting much better nowadays, but in the past it was kind of very hard. But there were always volunteers who had money, who had the means, and they would always contribute. So ATADC has been very lucky in that sense. Good volunteers, good donators, and a lot of hardworking people. I thought, and I still think, that it's a good way to reach out to people and get them interested. But now you have the online ability, and you have Facebook or Twitter and social media. It reaches everywhere and everybody. But it was hard labor, when you don't have the right technology, you do just desktop publishing, and you send it to the printers, it gets published, and then you put address labels on each magazine and mail them. It was a long process, but it was a really enjoyable thing to do. By profession, I like writing and gathering news and material, and it was one of the things that I enjoyed most, probably second to teaching at the Turkish school. I've always been interested in writing, so writing was the good part of it. And also pictures, you know, a lot of pictures if I could find them. And the most exciting thing for me was to talk about or interview old-timers, you know. Sometimes people get forgotten easily, you know, you just don't see them, don't hear about them, and you forget. But they have contributed to the community a lot. They have worked on many projects, like Oya Bey'in, for instance, or Engin Holmstrom. You know, they have been presidents and board members and this and that, like Tolga Çubukçu, Ünal Bener. You know, there are so many names I can count. But I wanted them in Ata News too, you know, so I would send them questions and get their responses and put it into a story. And, you know, like Olcay Çığtay, for instance, I was very proud of what she did. And being a breast cancer survivor myself, she contributed to the diagnosis of cancer patients at Georgetown University, and we did a very nice interview with her. And after that, if we talk about impact, I got many calls from several cancer patients who were already going through chemo and radiation, and they wanted to get in touch with Olcay Çığtay. And you know, I was a bridge between them and Olcay Çığtay, so I felt really good about it. So this type of thing, you know, like talking about Oya Bey'in, everybody does. But do we know what she did or how she came to today? So, you know, talking about these people, and also young, successful businessmen, for instance, or realtors, because there are so many of them in our area. It was, you know, putting them in the spotlight kind of was one of the things that I enjoyed most. Yeah, one thing about school, we got a lot of support from Ambassador Şükrü Elekta and his wife Ayla Elekta. Ayla Elekta would bring their kids to the school almost every weekend. And she would tell me, you know, the kids are here. I hope they brought their homework too, because we gave them homework at that time. Please let me know if they don't have the homework, or if they don't behave. Call me directly, so I will tell them to behave. You know, she was so much involved in everything, and an ambassador's wife, you know, checking with me about her kids' homework, you know. It was nice, you know, it was very nice to hear that. Like, I remember board meetings that I attended, because I have been a board member since 1980, and I was in different positions, you know. I was the secretary, I was the vice president, then the president. So, you know, I had 2 kids in the meantime, and I was sitting at board meetings, 9 months pregnant, and everybody would joke about it. They would say, you know, go home, don't come to the meetings, you'll have the baby here, you know. But we wanted to be there, and that's something I remember. There are so many of them. One thing, you know, is obvious. Everybody who gets in touch with Atadisi for one reason or another, or starts volunteering for Atadisi, it's like a bug, you know. Once you are hidden by the bug, It's like they say the same thing in broadcasting, same thing in acting or any other activity. Once you are bitten by the bug, then you cannot leave it alone. You keep going. That's the best thing about Atadisi. I am so happy to see so many hardworking, dedicated, disciplined, enthusiastic young members now. I mean, they carry the torch, as they say, and I don't know what else could be done, but I'm sure they will take the association to a better level with their contribution, and I'm very proud of them. I regret that we did not start the sending the teachers to Turkey program beforehand, because it was our initial project with the teachers workshop. Then other organizations kind of copied it and now have taken it to that level. But I still think that it would have been a good credit for Atadisi. I wish I worked more vigorously on that. And I wish I did not try to please all the people, all the members, and not wasted that much time on that, and would continue with whatever we were doing instead of trying to please people, because it is impossible. I should have realized it earlier on. I have found out that you cannot force people to do something or to become a member of an association. If they don't believe in it, then they won't become members. And maybe that's better, you know. If they don't believe in it, they shouldn't be there. But Atadisi may try to attract more members, and I think kind of unite the young and the old. And what they are doing right now is good enough, and you can't force things, that's for sure. You know, Atadisi has been doing a lot and would continue to do a lot, and I think you cannot represent everybody, you know. There are very many associations in the United States, and they represent different groups, and you cannot just say that, yes, embracing the community is good, but if people don't want to become a member, then it's hard to convince them. I think especially in the most recent years, Atadisi has been representing a lot of groups. In the past too, I don't think that it only represents one special group, because, you know, are you white color? Am I white color or blue color? You know, look at the association and the members and the activities that it has been accomplishing. There is something for everyone, and we have really a lot of people from many professions. But there are some who don't like Atadisi, prefer other organizations. That's what I mean by that, you know. There are a lot of different professions represented in Atadisi. It's not like only for doctors, for engineers, for this and that, but there are other groups. But maybe, you know, we can work harder on it, you know, to get to a lot of different other groups. But I mean, as I said before, you know, you cannot force people. You know, if they have a notion, it's very hard to change that. If they think that Atadisi is an elite organization, which is fine, you know, but they should look at what Atadisi does, who their members are, and they would come up with a different result than what they are saying. you know, it is every organization and every group has its chapters, you know. We have built a strong base, and I am sure, and I have no doubt about it, I am sure that the younger generation will carry it to a better level, and that's what they are doing. So when I look back with what we had at that time, we did our best for the association, and it is good to see that the new board members and the new members are doing everything they can to make ATADC a better organization. And you know, this is a good thing. There is always room for improvement, but I think you are doing what you should be doing. I would say work, work, work. Work more than you are working now, because there is a saying, I mean, Americans use it a lot, you know, there is no elevator to success. You know, you have to take the stairs. You have to work for what you are heading for, you know. And I believe personally that it is not impossible to balance work and family. I raised 2 kids, and it can be done. It is not easy, but I also would suggest that they will spare some time for volunteer work. I've learned more about volunteer work, and I appreciated it here in the United States, because their volunteer spirit is very strong here, not unlike in Turkey, you know. But I remember my mother, who was a housewife, organizing neighbors when I was in middle school and high school, organizing neighbors, and we would all go to Keçiören Çocuk Yuvası, where a shelter for kids without parents. We would go during lunch hour and feed the kids, because the lunch hour was from 12 to 1, and you get as many kids fed, and the rest would not be fed after 1 p.m. So this is what we regularly did, and I got this volunteer spirit from my mother, and I'm grateful to her. And I think everybody should have some time, spare some time for volunteer work, and work hard in their career, and also take care of their family. You know, it can be done. I am living proof of that. It can be done, you know. Even if you have a tough job, you still should find time for volunteering for ATADC, my suggestion, and you'll make everything work out fine. You know, everything will work out fine. So my suggestion is work, 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 work hard, spare some time for volunteerism for your own satisfaction, and also take care of your own life and health. Yes, I would like to thank all the volunteers of ATADC. I mean, past presidents, past board members, past everybody, and the current ones too, you know, for their really, really hard work, because it is not easy, but it's very satisfying for a person to be part of any volunteer work, especially any volunteer organization like ATADC. So I am grateful for what they did and what they are doing. Thank you all very much.